everybody, and welcome to our Data Dialog today, bringing visibility to the modern data stack. We'll get started in just about 2 minutes. And welcome if you're just joining us. We're going to get started in about 1 more minute. Hello and welcome, everybody. We are excited to bring Alation and Fivetran together today for a special data dialogue, bringing visibility to the modern data stack. My name is Brandon Paskey. I'm a events director here at Alation, but I will hand this over to our host today, Matt Turner.
Good. Brandon, do we have any logistics for folks?
Yes, we will be doing some Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can put those in your Zoom toolbar. You'll see a little Q&A with some thought bubbles. Go and put your questions in there. If you have any issues with Zoom or anything else, you can put that into the chat. You should be able to chat with everybody in the webinar today.
All right, awesome. Well, welcome everyone to this webinar, bringing visibility to the modern data stack. And as Brandon mentioned, I'm Matt Turner. I'm our Director of Partner Marketing and Industry Strategy here at Alation. And it's great to be here to talk to you about this important subject, but more importantly, to bring some experts to bear. Quickly getting data to everyone, ensuring they can trust that data. It's just a critical part of every organization that's trying to become more data-driven. And the modern data stack is one of the key technologies, key trends impacting that and helping people get the data they need by letting them use cloud-based tools to quickly collect data from source systems, get them into action, into analysis. A critical component of this, moving that data, is making sure everyone can trace the data from source to analysis, see where it's been, and trust it. Fivetran's been reinventing how people create and manage data pipelines, and Alation, as Brandon said, is now partnering with Fivetran to bring that crucial pipeline information into the data catalog so that everyone can get a full picture of the data and surface pipeline data along with all the other information needed to speed that data discovery and help decision making. So today we're going to go deeper into this topic of visibility and metadata in the modern data stack. And we're going to also see a demo of Fivetran and Alation working together. Joining me, and click to the next slide. Joining me, as I mentioned, and to help bring the subject to life, we've got a panel of experts who've been working with organizations to better use data. They are Mira Viswanathan, Lead Product Manager at Fivetran, Dominic Orsini, Lead Solution Architect at Fivetran, my colleague Ben Ng, who is a Partner Solution Architect at Alation, and myself, Matt Turner. As I mentioned, I'm our Partner Marketing Manager and also working with some industry stuff. So, panel, hi folks. Let's get started with some introductions in your own words. Let's just go in that order that we just talked about. And Mira, if you can get started just talking to people, let everybody know who you are and what you've been up to.
Absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. It's 8 a.m. here in Pacific in California. So, I'm having my cup of coffee as I'm talking to you. I'm a lead product manager here at Fivetran, focused on data governance and data access. And I'm super excited to work with Alation and be on this webinar to talk to you all about metadata and governance.
Okay. Dom?
Yeah, my name's Dom Morsini. I'm a lead enterprise solution architect here at Fivetran, based out of our rainy London office. It's pretty miserable here today, but it's much later, so I've had about 3 coffees, not just one. I've been in the data integration and data governance space for over 10 years now, working on large-scale enterprise projects and initiatives to move data within and across organizations safely and securely. So looking forward to talking all about our partnership with Alation.
Awesome. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. Ben Ng. I'm actually out of Austin, Texas. So halfway in between everyone, I guess. So part of the partner engineering team, I've been working with Mira and Dom on, the metadata API that Fivetran has released, and working with the customers, trying to see how customers, want to use the data we all have and make it all better and easier access to them. So welcome, everyone.
Awesome. Welcome. I'll give myself a little bit of a more introduction. As I mentioned, I'm Matt Turner. I'm based in New York City. Been with Alation about 1.5 years, but been working in data forever and ever. And this latest round of data innovation has been great to see, where we're not just talking about how we can better optimize the system. We're really thinking about how people can get access to the information they need, and in the process, reinventing those sort of age-old processes of bringing data from one source to another. So it's great to be part of this. And we're actually going to start with that. So just to set the stage a little bit, we want to hand it back to both Mira and Dom and talk a little bit about Fivetran, and then we'll take a turn introducing Alation, and then we'll get right into this combination. So back to you, Mira.
Awesome. Yeah, so again, super excited about this partnership. And we just wanted to start off by talking about what Fivetran does and how it enables your data movement. Next slide, please. So what Fivetran is really intended for is your modern data stack. So as you adopt the cloud data platform and start moving more of start adopting cloud data warehouses, data lakes, the centralization of data, or the need for centralization of data, doesn't really go away. But you can imagine that in what we want to do is we want to allow you to adopt your transformations within your warehouse or your destination of choice. And within Fivetran, what we'll focus on is ensuring your data is normalized, cleansed, deduplicated, idempotent. So really, it's set and forget. So you come in, you set up your pipeline, and we move all of your pipelines in a normalized format to your destination, ready for consumption or ready for transformation. So the focus of this is really to reduce the amount of effort it takes to build and maintain pipelines and allow customers easier access to data. But of course, I'm just speaking from the product perspective, so I'm going to tap into Dom and see if he has any more customer centralized viewpoints about Fivetran to add here.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I've been working in data integration for quite a long time now. And I've sort of moved from the traditional data stack that you often hear about, the ETL piece, which involves sort of on-premise, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. And what I've actually done is seen that although this integration piece has got a lot more simpler with Fivetran, the governance piece is just as important as it was back then in the traditional stand. So what we're trying to do is work with people such as Alation, and we can bring all that information into the catalog to help you govern your data. So Fivetran makes integration very simple, but we're also working with other people to make governance as simple as possible for your organization. So we've got a lot of customers that are using, and we'll talk more about the metadata API and what that's all about a bit later on.
All right, great. Well, that's a great tee up. And so just if Brandon, you can go forward to just a quick overview what Alation's about. And as Dom, you kicked into, we are about the data catalog. And I now think of Alation as the data intelligence company. We're really here to help people gain and collect the most information about their data so they can more effectively put it into action. And our founders had a very unique idea to approach this from the data catalog with something that was human-centric, meant for people to use, which when we start talking about systems and moving data around, we can often forget that there's a whole class of people that are not interested in really, connecting the dots, but interested in seeing and touching and using that data. And Alation's target has always been that group of people that are actually across the organization, not just in the technology anymore. Every single person, data consumer. We did that with a whole bunch of great technology to understand your data, some very active and great machine learning algorithms to help classify and understand it, and then mixing it all together. And also mixing it all together in the data catalog, and then using those same algorithms to help people find exactly what they need. It's gotten us a lot of attention. We've been in some Magic Quadrants and some of the Forrester waves, but really we're still focused again on data intelligence. How do you find information? How can it be used? Should it be used? And how should it be? Should it be used and how should it be used? I guess those are two separate. So, and just kind of summing it up for Alation, Brandon, if you go to the next. We think about this as a journey towards really helping people, and it's true that our motto is empowering a curious and rational world. We think about this as a journey to finding data, understanding how to use it, governing it, contributing to how an organization can actually develop a data culture, and then that data culture actually allows you to use data as part of your decision making, as part of your day-to-day jobs. So it's a big vision, and the work we've just done with Fivetran, with you guys, to expand this is really a big part of this puzzle, because there's a great deal of information that was not coming into the catalog about how data moves. So I think we're going to switch to conversation mode again for a little bit. If you're waiting around for the demo, there will be a great demo in about 10 minutes. So just kind of wait around. But we did want to continue to set the stage. So we've been working on this together. So, Ben mentioned that he was early. We've been working on this idea of bringing the data intelligence to modern data stack. Can we go back to the start and just talk about why this is important? So why is it important that Alation and Fivetran work together? What does it mean from the Fivetran perspective to start surfacing information, not just making sure things flow properly, making sure data, I had to double check that I heard that correctly, Mira. You may want to explain to people why data has to be idempotent, but that's very important. But what's going on with this edition? So maybe start a little bit with some of the overall critical trajectory or things that you're looking at Fivetran is helping to bring. And then let's get into this data intelligence and sort of backtrace a little bit of why we started working together.
Absolutely. So my CISO, Tom Conklin at Fivetran, always says the earliest stage that governance can be applied in the data ecosystem is the pipeline, because the data is at rest when it comes to the source. And when it comes to the pipeline, there are two unique value propositions that the pipeline can provide, in addition to the regular governance requirements, like plugging into data audits to make sure data use and data access is in compliance with your PII policies, for example. So the first step is, because the pipeline is the thing that actually moves data from one point to another point, it's the earliest stage where you can actually block sensitive information, make sure your data is not even exposed, right? So tagging, identifying PII, identifying sensitive organizational information and blocking it or hashing it, that's the earliest stage it can happen. The second thing is really context. So this comes up all the time. And I think this is the part where Alation and Fivetran are really, really excited about our partnership, which is ultimately for customers like Matt, like you mentioned, the curious folks who really want to understand what data to use and make data more discoverable. In order to do that, people need as much context as possible. Where did my data come from? Is it, a Salesforce QA system? Is it actually a Salesforce production system? Am I actually getting the accurate status of my customer? Is the deal closed? You don't want someone to think that the deal is like halfway closed, or and they still can access the customer when they've, when it's already been lost, for example. So there are a lot of value adds and a lot of concerns with accessing data that's more stale. And not knowing where your data came from. So in the pipeline, from the perspective of the pipeline, we can provide that additional context. Where did your data come from? What location did it come from? Some tags, some more information. So customers, again, as they're discovering this information in the catalog, they can just get more. more context to make sure they are accessing the right information. But I
John,
know.
did you want to?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt. My bad.
No, I was
Yeah,
just
I
curious
mean,
if
I
Tom wants
think-
to add on it. There's
Yeah, I
so
think
much.
Mira covered a lot.
I think that people may not recognize how much rich data. We talked about, one of those tip of the iceberg places. I mean, pipelines are you can look at it and go, just move something from point A to point B, but there's so much more in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have over like 200 source connectors, right? So the more we're simplifying the way that you get data into your platform, but that also means that there's more data coming into your platform. So the whole idea of this partnership with Alation is to control that. I'll talk about a customer in a bit around that. You don't want to sort of catalog what's already there. The pipeline brings that data in for you, and you want to do that from the source, as Mira said. That makes your life a lot easier. Sometimes there's challenges in terms of getting buy-in at the start of it all, but it makes your life a lot easier if you start to do that at the pipeline level. And then you can build out from there. So if you're looking at a lineage graph, it's left to right, we want to be right on that left side helping you out. And SaaS tools are often a bit of a black box, but the way that we've designed our governance solution is that we want to be open to terms of what we're doing with that data, where it's going, so we can expose that to you guys.
So Ben, you were around from the start. Do you remember thinking this is the first time we can actually begin to give visibility below that waterline in the pipeline, in the iceberg, if you will?
Right. So yeah, exactly. So to Tom's point, right, the left side of that lineage graph, we've always been able to catalog, okay, where your warehouse is, where all that data is landing. And then, of course, we have abilities to catalog various sources, right? So some of the relational databases, stuff like that. But there's always been a challenge where if folks are using a tool like Fivetran, we weren't able to really get any of that lineage between the two systems, right? We were always looking at query logs, so it's not there. It's being transferred via, Fivetran. So now with this integration, we are able to make that tie-in. So in the catalog itself, we are truly able to show, look, Fivetran is on the left side of that lineage graph. Now, as users are trying to understand where their data is coming, like Mira is saying, which is the source, we can now actually show them, hey, it is coming from the Salesforce QA system or prod system, right? So that's really the exciting part about this integration, this partnership, being able to start completing that end-to-end lineage.
Yeah, I learned a lot about source to destination when we were working through this. Okay, before we get to the solution, because we're about to get there, I do want to talk about who this impacts. So we had, you're talking about customers a little bit, but even some of the roles that are really now working with information, and I have this imagination around, the data engineer who's having to go back and work with Fivetran and not recognizing that it's already been done, or not recognizing that these pipelines actually do exist and have already been connected. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about some of the roles that that you work with, and also the way these roles are changing with more information.
Absolutely. Matt, I seriously feel like the keynote over here. Before you finish the question, I'm unmuting myself, excited to chat. So from the product perspective, and I'll let Dom get into more of the customer use cases over here, we identified three main personas. One is security and legal, because you want to keep them happy. They're the ones who are making sure that the company doesn't end up on the news, right? So there's huge financial obligations, huge brand risk associated with misused data. So making sure they have visibility into what's happening. So really know your data, or the pillar of know your data, that's where it comes into play. The second for us is data engineers, because they're the ones who have to respond if data movement is in lack of compliance. They have to be making sure that, for example, if something changes upstream, everyone downstream is alerted and notified, and tags and classifications are propagated all the way through. So that, to us data engineers, they're the core of it. They have to know their data, protect the data. They have to make sure everything is in place. All the guardrails are in place. So folks who are accessing the data, again, are not getting access to something they're not supposed to. And I think the final persona for us are really data analysts, or the distributed data teams. So they can get context. Again, for them, they're the discoverers. They're the ones who are looking for the data. So that contextual information that we've all chatted about here, I think that's also super key. But again, I speak in the hypothetical as a product manager, so I'm going to pass it off to Dom to kind of go into some of the details with customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, Mira. Yeah, so we work with a lot of customers that are moving to the modern data stack. So they have a lot of legacy systems, and I'm working with a large enterprise right now that's building a new data transformation strategy. So they're getting from their old technologies and then moving it into the modern data stack with Snowflake, dbt, Fivetran, and syncing a lot of enterprise data, a lot of like older systems, ad connectors, all of this. So a huge mixture of sources. And they told me, I remember it was like the first or second call, they said, look, this platform has to be bound by data governance. It's a wild west at the minute, and we want data governance within this. So that starts with the pipeline, right, in terms of what's going in. And it's often quite difficult to sell a concept to somebody to say, we need to catalog and see what the hell's going on when everything's already done. Like, people don't want to get that buy-in. So they're very pragmatic in the sense that they want to understand what data is going in, and they only allow data that's well governed to go into their system. And that's what we're exposing with the metadata API within Fivetran. But I also want to talk on the other side. I always talk about the left side. I want to talk about the right side of metrics. So when you start a new project, they often say, well, what metrics do we have already? And they did a huge analysis of all their old systems. And analyzing it, they realized that they only had to recreate 40% of the old system's metrics because of the amount of people that were doing the same work. So they were saying, well, this metric already exists, it's just called something else. This is already existed over here, it's just called something else. So although that slow start in terms of looking at governance first, people saw it as a bit of a blocker. There were challenges. Like, a lot of people are like, you're trying to stop me getting data. People just want the data, right? They were saying that that's a big challenge, but as they showed the cost benefit analysis of it all, people started to understand, actually, it's great. I only need this amount of data. That requires much less sign off. That's what I can do. And they were worried about the black boxness of Fivetran, stopping that in terms of being able to understand what's coming into their system. But as you said, we've been able to expose that with Alation. And now they have over 100 active users in their catalog that are using it every day to understand who owns this data, what data is already existing. They've got definitions of metrics, so they can really understand. And data quality was a huge issue for them as well. But now they've got a full stack in terms of this modern data platform, and they can literally see from a data quality perspective, where did this column come from over here in Salesforce? Okay, this seems to be a bit of a funny report. Where did it come from? Over here in this SAP database. So we have a huge amount of power partnering with you guys, and customers are very grateful that Fivetran's no longer a black box in governance.
Yeah, you guys have given me so much to reflect on and so just reflecting on the Alation user pool for us is that similar overlay of the data teams, but we also begin, and you've just touched on it, Dom, we're beginning to see people think about data strategy. And even, CDO office people, it's never really the same. We're still not settled where all these people are. But I think about data strategists who are now turning not just from that initial data to drive the business. We can optimize, we can figure out our better customer view, but they're really finding the data is actually going to transform how they do the business. And so Dom, that example of needing to only recreate 40%. Is something that we see over and over again from somebody who really got data governance, and they weren't getting data governance just to protect the data. They were getting data governance because it'll just have these big knock-on effects when they re-engineer from the cloud, reducing the number of simultaneous reports. You have a financial organization that went from thousands of separate reports to literally three or four core reports that did the same functionality, and they can only see that when they brought it all together. And that's a big thing for us. And the other, just coming back from the customers, we've had a lot of inbound requests. Can you help us work more with Fivetran? And the people going into that area are those kind of activists. They're in these environments. So a lot of healthcare, a lot of financial services, also a lot of manufacturing. They're in these environments where really knowing how the data gets used impacts how the organization runs. And it's great to see, because I think, when we started off, there's so much data in the pipeline that they can get visibility to. So we've teed up this big reveal about how Alation and Fivetran work together, and it's time to get into it. and to start showing it. So we did want to just talk a little bit about this. Was keyed off from Fivetran's introduction of your metadata API. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about that, and then Dom and Ben, you guys are going to walk us through what it looks like working together.
Fantastic. All right. Metadata API. So again, we've been talking a lot about how we want to make data more accessible and easier to access for our customers, right? We want to feed that curiosity. And I would always say one of my favorite quotes is, ignorance killed a cat, curiosity was framed. But either way, I think where that really comes from is ultimately we want to be a good partner. And as Dom mentioned, one of the things we were thinking about is Fivetran is a platform, we're a data pipeline. We are not a governance platform. We know our customers are using leading vendors like Alation. And what we want to do is expose that information to our customers within Alation so they can continue their governance processes, their discovery processes in the tool of their choice. And that's really the goal of the metadata API is how can we share that context that we were talking about? How can we share those classifications, those tags, that additional information with our partners? And that was the driving factor for the metadata API, is to allow Fivetran to be extensible and horizontally extensible into your governance tools.
Okay, and then for those following along, that was announcement and released early this fall, right? September.
Yeah. It was early September, which is super.
And I can only second back the great atmosphere that we're experiencing. Alation really is an ecosystem company. We're a catalog. We work with everybody who works on data, all of our partners coming together and bringing the information, and that's just one of the many signals, especially when you think about this modern data stack, of how much collaboration there is to benefit our customers. And it's been great to see, and we were super happy to be able to pick up on it. And Ben, I'm going to hand to you to get started to show you what that looks like.
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
And hopefully Brandon's got his wizardry to get you the screen, and there you go. Perfect.
All right, cool.
All right, take it away.
Yeah, just want to kind of take a quick look at, I think this was part of our announcement, right? So with that metadata API that Mira was talking about, we are now able to actually pull data from Fivetran into our catalog itself. So here, just a quick diagram showing we'll grab metadata from sources like Salesforce to destinations like Snowflake, but now with that integration, we're going to be able to pull in all of that metadata that Mira was talking about. So from there, let's just jump over one other, we're talking about the modern data stack, right? So here again, Alation being the catalog, governance out here with Fivetran being the connection between your data sources into your storage, right? We are now able to get all of that information into the catalog to help Alation really provide all that information about the modern data stack. So let's jump into the tool, right? So if we're looking at this, right? So think about this, kind of looking at what Mira was talking about, some of the user personas, either analysts, security, right? Within the catalog, we could actually go in as that user and start looking up, okay, let's say I need to look at the financial transactions, right? So with our default connectors, we're able to go in, catalog everything that's in Snowflake. If I take a look at the lineage, right, all of this is going to be provided where I could see, okay, as an analyst or as a security, what is going on, right? What is driving this table here? I could go back, see other views, and then even right here, right? Let's look at these. These would be what we consider, I guess, my traditional view of it, a staging table, right? This is where the data gets dumped in. In the past, right, before our integration, all we would be able to do is say, okay, well, we've got these tables in Snowflake. We know Fivetran populated it, but we were never able to actually connect it back to what the source was. So now with the metadata API, we could now go see, hey, look, here's actually a table from, in my example, Postgres, right? Being able to go grab all that information and see, okay, we are actually grabbing data from Postgres. So this actually helps us get that completion of the left side that Dom was talking about. If we expand out some of these here, right, so this really is showing off the power of the metadata API. I could actually go in and take a look at column level lineage here, right? So now Fivetran, through that exposure, right, to give Alation or its partners the ability to actually get down to column level lineage. So I think this helps out with a lot of that auditing. Guess, Dom, let me pass it over to you. I know you've been involved in this, like with users, customers. How does this, help them?
Well, it helps them a lot, right? So one of the pieces that I want to always convey to customers about a metadata API and governance is that this isn't done at like a config level. It's not what you do, whatever you've configured, we expose to the metadata API. It's done at runtime. So we only generate the lineage once the pipeline has run. So you're confident that what you're seeing is what's happened. And you'll also notice that with Fivetran, you don't have to bring in all the columns, right? This is the whole point. If you've got PII data, you might not want to sync that data. It's not required for the metrics down the line. Again, you can see that bill amount 1 on the screen doesn't have any lineage within it. So there's certain scenarios where we don't need to load columns, and we will expose that for you. So it's not a case of we just grab everything under a table and map it to the next hop. We really look at the runtime analytics. We understand what's going on. And this opens up a whole lot of power in terms of going directly back to the source to see exactly what's wrong, if there is any issues with data quality, if there's an ownership, if there's anything that's duplicate. We're already bringing this in from another pipeline. There's a lot of power here that allows you to see what's going on. The final point I'd make is when I talk to developers, so let's say a DBT developer as a solution architect, impact analysis is a huge thing for them. So understanding that if they change something, what happens down the line? If I'm going to create this model in DBT, do I have that data? If I change this, does this change anything? Do I need to add anything else? So impact analysis is also a big key use case for us when it comes to column level lineage, which is the granularity most enterprises want. When you're working with things like big banks, they want column level lineage, not table level lineage. But you can select table level lineage if you require.
Excellent. Thanks, Dom. So, this covers what we could actually catalog out of the box, right? From an Alation perspective. Let's take a look at something else Dom had mentioned, right? So for us, Salesforce, I think that's a very popular source for a lot of Fivetran customers. So Alation out of the box can catalog your Salesforce and bring in all the objects that are there. But one interesting thing, as we were working through this integration was there are a ton of other sources out there that Fivetran has access to that Alation doesn't have connectors to. So we were just talking Twitter ads, right? So Twitter ads is something that right now Alation doesn't have any way of grabbing what are those source objects out there? What are the source columns out there? So based on that, we were able to leverage the metadata API. And, this isn't something that everyone might want, but because it's now available via the API, we have ways to ingest that and now bring it into the enterprise catalog. So, Alation has 80 plus connectors out there. Dom, you were talking about, you guys have a lot of other ones out there too, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is something that often gets overlooked when we talk around metadata APIs. People are very much focused on the data lineage piece, but we often forget about the boxes, right? We always focus on the line. And as Ben said, we have about 200 source connectors that a lot of catalogs don't talk to, but we can expose the metadata for them. So for people that aren't familiar with Fivetran, a lot of ours, we create ERDs, entity relationship diagrams, for a lot of sources, and we're constantly updating them. So if you wanted to connect to Twitter, we pull out lots of API calls and we create tables that we map to your warehouse. I don't think we have who's paid $8 for Twitter yet. Probably needs to be updated, but we are trying to work out how we update this and keep up to date with all of these connectors. And we always make changes. There is a concept within Fivetran where you are allowed, you can block new columns. So I'm not saying that if something changes, it comes through. Part of our governance strategy at Fivetran is that you control what's going in through your pipeline. Even if the source system changes, if they give us a new endpoint, if we add that in, you can decide if you want to be notified on that, block that, or automatically accept that. So these boxes on the left allow you to have custom objects within Alation, all through the same metadata API. And then, like I said, we can determine via column level lineage which columns are being synced automatically. So it's pretty powerful in terms of opening up your catalog to sources that you might not see when you pick Alation.
Thanks, Dom. So just wanted to cover, let's kind of take a look at the rest of the modern data stack, right? As Dom says, folks are using DBT out there. And then there's also all your analytics tools like the Tableaus, right? So I just want to show a quick overview of what Alation is doing around all of that. So again, let's go back. I'm going to go back to the financial transactions again and take a look at it. So here, just a couple of quick overviews of what we're doing. DBT, a lot of folks are using it once the data's landed, from Fivetran into wherever you're going. Folks are already doing some documentation around there. So we are looking at bringing in all of this, right? Again, being able to make people understand what that data is. It could even help to say, hey, it's been landed here. They've documented in DBT. So, even if Fivetran is a source, we could get additional information there. A couple of other things, right? I know Mira and Dom, you guys had talked about quality, right? Here, it's just a quick example for those that are leveraging the data that's been landed and using DBT. If they're running DBT tests, Alation had announced an open data quality initiative. I think, Matt, what was it, June timeframe, May-June timeframe of this year? So we're leveraging a lot of that. So this is just an example where transformation tools, in the future, other tools, we could actually bring those in. So again, this is the ability to really show off to the end users of the catalog. Is the data trustworthy? Is there any issues with it? And so on, right? And finally, with the lineage side. So again, this lineage, we had already shown that the left side of this lineage graph was where we now have that completed connection via Fivetran. The rest of these could be DBT transformations, right? With Alation, we're able to catalog it to really see what that is. So now, again, making sure your users, either your analysts or your engineers, really understand how people are leveraging that data or transforming that data, looking at column level lineage. So we're able to go in and bring in a lot of that natively with our connectors, but we're also going to be looking at supplementing it with tools like the DBTs and so on that provide us additional transformation information. So we still could get lineage if we're not able to parse it out of the box. And then if we move beyond just the transformation part, right, we get into the analytics. So this now finishes the right side of that modern data stack lineage, where we see it from Fivetran on the left. On the right side is going to be all your analytic tools. In my example here, this would be your Tableau, right? So I could actually link into the Tableau data sources, the reports, and all the way to the dashboard. So now your users could really understand, okay, if I'm that dashboard user, where did my data come from? Now, all the way back to the source because of our integration with Fivetran. Or the other way around, right? If someone's looking at your Fivetran jobs and trying to understand, hey, if we make any changes, what's going to be impacted, right? This is all your downstream impacts, what DBT models could be impacted, all the way to what dashboards could be impacted. And the final thing I just want to throw out there is, right, with this lineage within Alation, being able to generate all that from the stuff we've gotten from Fivetran and DBT, we're able to propagate our trust flags, our warnings all the way down. So now it's not just isolated that, hey, if we see something with a data pipeline issue, we could actually notify catalog users all the way downstream that there could be a potential issue of stuff. Or if you endorse it, right, we could look at stuff like that too. So Matt, anything you want to chime in on this one?
Well, I think you gave us a great overview. Well, no, not overview. You gave us a great example of why Fivetran went to the work to create the metadata API. So Dom and Mira, your vision has come true. All that information, that data moving around is immediately put into context. And I think this is such a great example, Ben, where, and Dom, you were talking about, that impact analysis. It's end to end in the catalog, but it comes from each one of all of those technologies making their information available, starting with the metadata API. So I want to bring us from this demo. So I guess, Ben, maybe the first question is, you just showed us a demo working together. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what that means? It's a prototype of the two APIs working together. So if people want to see more, they can raise their hand, and we can show them what we're up to, right?
Yeah. So yeah, if anyone's interested in getting more details about it, definitely, let any of us on this call know, and we will get in touch with you, show you where we're going. We've got, roadmaps on what's the initial integration. And as partners here, I think there's plans of other stuff. I'm not sure what Mira and team are planning, but, as partners, we're always looking forward to adding in more functionality as each of us, exposes stuff.
Yeah. And I always talk about this and that's why we were so excited to bring everybody this first step, because we know that this is the beginning of a lot more information coming in. So there's some great questions. I'm gonna play Question Master for just a second and pick right up there. Suresh is asking, as an end user, I wish to know when the data set was last refreshed, mostly from batch, micro batch user cases. Does Alation or Fivetran account for this? And I don't know the answer. I can guess, but I'm not going to guess. So I assume that the first one would be on the Fivetran side, talking about what's available in the API.
Yeah, I can take that. At this moment, where you get that information is from a column that Fivetran lands called Fivetran synced, that tells you when the data has been synced. At this point in time, it's not exposed in the API, but it is something that keeps coming up. So definitely on our roadmap.
Okay. All right, good. And then Ben, I can even say it because I know it's true. As soon as it comes in, it's something that we can put into the catalog. Okay. Does Alation, let's see, Mira, you had tagged yourself on this one. Does the metadata API cover the data replication done through HVR, Fivetran's recent acquisition?
Yeah, great question. So we will not be supporting the legacy HVR, but we will be supporting high volume agent connectors that we're releasing. So the HVA connectors will be supported as part of the API.
Okay. All right. And so there's a question about Alation and data governance, Ben. So does Alation have a framework to help customers establish new data governance policies? So is there a link you can share?
I would say, Matt, I guess, do you want to talk about like our stewardship workbench or our data governance items?
Well, I think specifically when you're talking about Snowflake, we've got the ability to help people manage policies. And then that comes into the whole life cycle we just talked about, because then you're seeing not just where the data ended up in the destination, but actually how specific the implementation of specific policies, either of different kinds, either access ones or in fact rights and permissioning ones, are actually utilized in the Snowflake database. We also have something called Policy Manager that helps people apply them. I think that's a specific thing from Snowflake. Overall, in the world of data governance, surfacing policies is part of the bigger platform that Alation helps people get access to. So I think we may not have answered that fully, but we can definitely share a sheet into that. Okay. There are a couple, I don't know if you guys can all see the questions. Do you want to pick up some, or Mira, do you have one you want to pick up?
Yeah, I can talk about, is the API text specific? Yes, the metadata API is intended for Fivetran, so it can be applied against a generic tool. So it is intended specifically for Fivetran.
Okay. And there's another one similar to that, which we had in, is the Fivetran metadata automated? What happens if something changes in the source schema?
Yeah, so that's something, yes, it is automated. So as Dom mentioned, it is runtime information. So we'll share the data that's actually synced and that's being moved through your pipeline. And in Q1 and Q2, we're actually adding the capabilities to share schema changes as well. So when a column has been added, a column has stopped syncing data for a certain period of time, or a column type has changed, those are 3 events that will start getting surfaced as well.
Okay. And then there was another one, we did sort of get right into data governance, but metadata is only part of data governance strategy. What else does Fivetran do to support end-to-end governed data? And I think that's something that we can expand on a little bit on our side too. But let's start with what you're thinking about.
Yeah, so one of the key things is what we mentioned before, which is tagging and classifying data. The earliest stage we can do that is really in the pipeline. So PII detection is something that we're looking at to help our customers both identify the data and then apply the right treatment to it, whether it's blocking, hashing, and in the future tokenizing this information. Outside of that, it's exposing more information. So we're starting off with column level lineage, but the amount of information we can expose over there is immense. So things like column descriptions, or providing more information about the location this data came from, providing more information about the source itself. So as much information as we have, these are all things that we can do to help you uniquely identify where this data came from. And then finally, access. So customers can discover this data and we want them to be able to access it as well. So analysts should be able to self-serve their own pipelines. Fivetran is easy to use. So we want to enable customers to go into Fivetran and request adding new connectors, request adding new columns. And the process is just a simple workflow that integrates with your ITSM system like ServiceNow or Jira.
Absolutely. And there was another question about getting started with data governance. And so the information to impact data governance is a key part of what we think of as Alation, as the whole holistic practice of data governance. Knowing your data, assigning it, understanding it, and then we, from the Alation point of view, bring in a lot of people. We want to recognize the work that people do to manage data sets, recognize them as data stewards, give them ownership, give them recognition, give them the tools they need to understand when their data is changing, and then using the data catalog as a vehicle to collect information, but to update the information. And then, as Ben showed in the tool, actually use trust flags and other tools to let people to push out data governance so everyone understands the state of the data. So data governance is kind of a longer journey that begins with the technical information, but now begins to involve people, recognition for what they're doing, and can go into, defensive auditing, making sure the data is correctly, correctly policyed and managed, but is also a really empowering factor. That's how you can actually then know that you can go, kind of, Dom, what you were just talking about, the answers, when you have 2 different answers, that can have everybody talks about the apocryphal story about having 2 different answers, but I actually saw one in real life in the aerospace industry where there are 2 different torque settings for a bolt. And that kind of, that one always brings it home to me. Like, okay, there's something really, really wrong. And that's what data governance is actually about, is understanding the lineage, so that then in the future, you can automate that and say, well, there won't be 2 there because we know this information is passing through the correct process. And this is the right information. So I think there was one more, the DBT transformation. It's a little bit off topic because we're in here, but a little bit about DBT and codes be pulled into Alation's query repo, as well as the API.
Yeah,
building on that information.
Yeah, I was actually trying to type in the same answer. Yeah, so with DBT transformations, right, all those models, the queries that drive those models, we are looking at adding them to the Alation data flow. So similar to the query, the data flow content that is in our data flow objects, we will be looking at pulling those in. So again, we're looking to use DBT to supplement anything that we don't get from our query log ingestion.
Okay. All right. I think we've gotten almost all of our questions. Mira and Dom, there were a couple of questions about just about Fivetran and what makes Fivetran unique. So why don't I leave you with that as a general question, and then we'll do our wrap up.
I'm gonna let Tom answer that question.
I'll take care of
Sure.
that. Yeah, for sure. So I've worked with a lot of ETL and ELT tools in my time. What makes Fivetran unique is basically the simple usage of it. So I work as a solution architect within Fivetran, and we implement our tool across enterprise businesses. And a lot of people see Fivetran and think, I'm connecting Salesforce to a Snowflake. And this is quite a simple process. I'm putting in my Salesforce user, and it creates all that table. And it almost becomes too easy. I've created mappings, and I've had to create API calls, and then I've had to do type 2 slowly changing dimensions. That's all out of the box from Fivetran. And I think probably the key differentiator is the low barrier to entry of using Fivetran. So if you have a source that we connect to and you have a destination, we can even provide the destination in a managed BigQuery, then we can actually get you moving within an hour or two. I've seen more go live at Fivetran than I have at any of my other companies within 6 months of being at Fivetran. I've been here 2 years, but the first 6 months I was like, wow, all these people are going live with all of these pipelines that took many times of building mappings or getting people in. You don't need specialists to do that. But above that, as a solution architect, my job sounds very simple because it makes it all very easy. But we integrate with a lot of other tools. So we can integrate with things like Airflow. You can automate things via Terraform and REST API. We have all this governance that's happening around it. So a simple tool, which can be done via UI, can also become something that's completely automated in your enterprise stack. So that's probably my 1 minute sales pitch.
And I think it's that simplicity, getting going, and also paying attention to what the users really need. You know,
yeah, we try and keep it
these
simple,
obstacles.
Yeah, we don't want loads of buttons.
And that's kind of coming back to where we started with the whole idea of the modern data stack, the whole idea of what I think is a next revolution in data, which is away from the mechanics of it and into the outputs. I mean, we talked here mostly about the impact of information on downstream decision making, making it faster, giving people visibility, impact analysis. We haven't really talked about collision. We haven't talked about some of the nuts and bolts that would have been the conversation just even a couple of years ago. Oh, what do I do when my batch is not running, and how to, and I think it's been great to see this evolution, see Fivetran evolving with it, and to be part of it with Alation, to be able to bring this information together. So I think I'm going to give it a wrap. Mir, do you have any last statements? I have a little wrap up. So if you want to give us a pre-wrap up, thank you.
I was just going to say that's a perfect tee up to our next webinar, right? So I'll pass back to you.
All right, cool. Well, it's been fantastic having you guys here. Brandon, we have a wrap up slide to get us out the door. And first of all, I just want to thank everybody who joined. Lots of great questions, great interactivity. I hope you found, well, I can tell you found it interesting because you were right there with us. And there's always more coming down the line. So both Alation, so we have a great, we have a hands-on lab, which includes you are getting started with Alation and Snowflake coming up on December 8th. So you can see that on our events page. Do you want to talk about how your free trial works, Mira?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can join us at Fivetran. This is a free trial sign up. As soon as you sign up for this, you get 14 days free access to Fivetran to set up your connectors, move this data to your destination. And as Dom mentioned, if you don't have a destination, we provide a managed destination for you as well. But look forward to working with you.
Absolutely, get started fast. We Ben previewed the little bit of a one-pager, talk about how Fivetran and Alation work together. And bonus, something that we talked about but now is confirmed, next week, your Thanksgiving special podcast can start with conversation between our founder and CEO, Sachin Sangani, and the Fivetran co-founders, George Fraser and Taylor Brown. That'll be a podcast dropping at Data Radicals. You can see it at the Alation.com site. And as always, our team is here. We're giving you guys our contact information. And just to wrap it up, I'm going to go around the horn. Let's see, Ben, why don't you go first and give people anything on your mind to send us off into this next phase?
No, I mean, like Matt says, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me on any of the Alation items that we have talked about. So look forward to chatting with anybody.
All right, awesome. Dom?
Just that I'm really excited about this partnership and all the governance that's coming out of Fivetran. It's really exciting, especially in the enterprise space. And if there's any questions that you have, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to help.
All right, and Mira, you're here at the start of this, so it's great to have this first milestone of us working together. Any thoughts?
I just want to reiterate Dom's excitement. This partnership has endless potential. This is just the start to where we what is coming up in FY24. So we're super excited to continue this conversation with you, and we're hearing from you. If you have any feature requests, please let us know.
Absolutely. Well, I want to extend my thanks first of all to all of you who joined us today. Dom, Ben, and Mira, thank you so much for a great conversation. And Brandon, I believe we are at a wrap. So thank you.